We've recently taken this office over, and we need to connect all of the things together. Let's have a look then. I mean, there's not that much, just some PCs here and there. Based on what I see, you will need шестой категории кабеля, новый модем. Sorry, you also need some new ЦСК свечи, может быть, что-то из серверного, скорее всего, ну, чтобы побыстрее было. Sorry, I'm not really tech savvy. Could you explain that? Could you simplify that for me, please? Sorry. It's not that difficult actually. You simply zakładamy nową linię szóstej kategorii, nie? No to i też pan sobie kupuje nowy modem, tak? Okay, could I have a quote on that then, please? Sure. With all inclusive labor, 2 weeks of work it will roughly take. So give or take, this will be around £13,489 plus VAT. Wow. I did not expect that. I mean, we only use the best suppliers and materials that are available on the market. It's okay. I'll go with the first quote. You sound like you know what you're doing. Sure. Don't worry. We'll take care of your money. Oh, you.
Hi, and welcome to a new episode. In today's episode, we'll see that networking, be it at home, a small business, or even a medium-sized business, networking, i.e. these old things and many more of them, are not as complicated as you might think. It all starts with the connection type. So there's only two ways that we will look at, and they're the main ways of connecting the devices between themselves. That is of course a cable, and that is the Wi-Fi connection. Now let's quickly brush over the Wi-Fi so we don't need to return to this, and we continue to speak of the more preferred method of connecting devices. If Wi-Fi is the only way that your devices are able to connect to the network, then you would need to seek either something that has more antennas. In general, that is somewhat a factor. The more antennas it has, the better it will be able to spread. However, you can't find the technical details, but you don't always have to. You can always install a repeater or install a bridge or another device, a router, and so on. But in general, if you're in a small building, small office, that's your home, flat, etc., you will not need more than just a single access point, modem, Wi-Fi router, whatever the ISP, your internet service provider, has given you. For example, this one is a BT given very weird model name, whatever this is called, but it gives out Wi-Fi. You don't see any antennas. It does the job in around, I want to say, 10 to 15 meter radius around the whole thing. Although the further away you get, the worse the signal is. Now, when should you choose to upgrade your device if this isn't sufficient? When do you pick up your phone and you start splurging the money out? Actually, not for some time, because most problems can be solved with, as I've just mentioned, with just a repeater. With, if you are a bit tech savvy, with something as simple as that. As you can see, this is a Netgear modem. And just quickly, modems are things that you plug in your phone or DSL cable into, and that gives you access to, well, but that's not just a modem, that's a combi device, because it acts as a Wi-Fi access point. This is why it has the antenna, and it also acts as a switch, and this is why it has this. So this is not just a plain modem, but for the simplicity's sake, we'll just say the modem. So if you're a bit tech savvy, you could use two different things in different corners, just run a cable or use through the power options in order to get the signal here. But in most cases, most probably you won't need anything. That is through as well if you're using up to, let's say, 10 devices that are connected to Wi-Fi to one access point, whatever the case might be, the shape of it, that is. So unless you've got more than 10 devices, and I'm not saying 11, 12, I'm saying 20, 25, 30 devices that need to be connected to Wi-Fi, this is where you will start to look into actually upgrading and splitting the loads between multiple access points. Speaking of cables, do you actually need to know what they stand for? The UTP, the FTP, the Cat6, Cat5e, Cat6 something else, 6A or whatever the thing is. Do you need to know what this connector name is? The RJ45 if you want. No, you need none of that. That is if you're doing the inside routing. By that I mean you are connecting the machinery, the equipment or the PCs within the inside. The cables do not go outside. So you grab whatever cable you can find, and while it will be cheaper to buy a huge roll of this type of cable and terminate your own cables, you can find them in being sold in variety of different lengths, and you will most probably find the exact lengths you require. And even if you don't know that this is a RJ45 patch cable, all you need to type into Google or eBay or Amazon or whatever, internet cable, that's it. You will get what you want. And now the more devices you've got, then obviously the more cables you will need to run. But since you don't need to know what this is, as in how it works internally, that there's two types, the A and B, which one's being used and which one's not, and so on, you don't have to bother about that, which means you still don't have to call a specialist. Now, going forward, if we turn this around and look at the switch part, the yellow port, then go in here, because obviously this is bigger than this one, so you won't be able to plug it in there, but you will be able to plug all of your things connecting to these ports. Now each of them will give out a connection to the device that's on the other end of the cable, which is fairly straightforward, isn't it? But what to do when you're at home, and let's say you've got your main computer plugged in, your system, mums, dads, grandpas, grandfathers and so on, computer plugged in here, then you've got your Xbox plugged in here, and then you've got your Google Stadia or whatever other device there is. Surely now you have to call in a specialist, don't you? Well, not really. You see, there are these devices. They are called switches. Now, whereas this one is a model, this one could have been a router if the main port, the entry port, would be different, not the DSL, ADSL port with RJ11 or 12, but it would have been the RJ45, and you need to know exactly none of the information I've just said. Besides that, for roughly, I want to say 15 to 20 quid, at least currently, if you search for something that's called a switch, you will find a device that will have multiple ports, and all you have to do is literally buy the device, this device, or similar device. I'm not saying buy whatever this brand is, just buy any switch, literally, that comes with obviously the power, so you don't have to look for the power adapter. The next thing you do, you take a random, shorter, preferably, cable that has the Ethernet or internet connections as you know them. You plug it into one of them. You unplug one of the ports that are being used here, and you plug the other end of this thing together. And now, the cable you've just unplugged, you plug it into the next hole, and even then you will still have another 6 free. As a conclusion, do you really need to go and call the tech specialist every time there is a random, unsolvable, supposedly complicated issue in order to just splurge money? Of course not. So what it is that you do to actually increase the connectivity options within your office, home, small business, etc., etc., you do not splurge cash. You do not learn about the connection types of 10 basics, 100 basics, or you do not even go into thinking of looking up the ISO OSI model and figuring out what each layer does for the connection, or you look up the connection types, you figure out what's an RJ45. You listen to none of the persons who tell you about all of that, because the technology nowadays is pretty much straightforward. If you would like to research this deeper though, then your main router will be DHCP enabled, which will allow any of the switch connections to automatically issue an address to any new MAC address it will detect. That will ensure that there will be a seamless connection between the devices. They'll share the connection and so on, etc., etc. But the main point is this, if we put it simply, is the same as this, because pretty much you can see the cable going from here to there and it carries on the signal to these. The same way, this thing, when plugged into a socket, will carry electricity to the ones obviously further down the line, and obviously this is taking up space, so the one that you've unplugged to plug this in will be plugged into the next available one. So it's as simple as that, realistically speaking. Just a note, switches do not give out Wi-Fi, and technically there are two types of them, a smart one and just a switch. So I could possibly say do not get a smart one, but it shouldn't really matter. They are as simple as that. And obviously there are many more details that we could go into. However, you do not have to overthink or overcomplicate, and neither does the technician that tells you you should, because honestly you are capable of running a cable yourself, and you are capable of plugging a cable into a box, as well as picking realistically any of these type of boxes. Speaking of that, if you type the amount of ports, willy-nilly number 8, 10, 20, 30, you will see different results depending on the needs that you've got. Maybe you've got 20 machines stuck on top of each other that do different things. Obviously you would not want just like, I don't know, 10 of these. You would go for the one that has 2 rows of them, let's say 30 ports, and you just plug a cable into each one that comes from the devices. And obviously you do not need, in most cases you don't even need to exchange the ISP provided modem. If you would need another access capabilities, you would just add another device in line. As simple as that. So hopefully this will help you avoid spending too much money if it is a simple expansion that you're looking at, and you don't realistically need to get someone out to just tell you that you need a little box and charge you roughly, I don't know, 3 times your salary just to have a look at it and obviously tell you that. So hopefully you've enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you in the next one.